மம்மி கிட்ட இருக்கு. மம்மி கிட்ட இருக்கு ஃபோன். ஃபோன் ஃபோன் மம்மி கிட்ட இருக்கு, வாங்கிக்கோ. பப்பா ஃபோனு மம்மி கிட்ட இருக்கு, வாங்கிக்கோ. Sir, can we start, sir? Hello?
Almost?
Yes, sir.
1 minute, I will join.
Yeah, okay, sir. Sir, can we start, sir? Murugan, sir, can we start?
Yes, we can start.
Yes, sir. So, good afternoon, dear participants. Welcome you all for the AICTE STTP on FEA. We have a session on mathematical modeling and finite element formulation of engineering problems. We have a guest, Dr. R. Murugan, ME PhD, Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Panimal Institute of Technology. He has completed his BE in Mechanical Engineering from Alagappa Chettiar College of Engineering Technology, Karaikudi in the year 1994. He did his Masters in Engineering Design from the Anna University, Chennai. He completed his doctorate in the area of vibration characteristics of polymer composite materials from the Anna University, Chennai. He has more than 50 technical publications in international journals and international conference proceedings. His research interest includes composite materials, processing and fabrication, materials characterization, mechanical vibration, mathematical modeling, and finite element analysis. He authored a textbook on engineering mechanics. He has more than 23 years of teaching experience. He worked for 4 years in Dr. MGR Engineering College and 16 years in Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering, Sri Permatur. Presently, he is working as professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Panimal Institute of Technology, Chennai. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Amos.
Thank you, sir.
For your introduction. Is my slide is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, proceed. So, good afternoon, participants. So, we are meeting in the second session of first day STTP. So, once again I welcome you all for this STTP. In morning session, our Professor Dr. Patmanabhan has given the overview of finite element analysis and the various methods available and applications also we pointed out. So before proceeding to the next guest speakers, so we want to give some basics and fundamentals about the finite element method. So next 2-3 lectures we will be having some fundamentals over the finite element method. So today I am going to start with how to convert a physical or engineering problem into a mathematical model, and then how to convert that mathematical model into a mathematical model. So these are the my topic of today's lecture. So because this basic knowledge is very very important for solving any engineering problem. So that is why we have allotted one separate session for this one, mathematical modeling and finite element modeling. Now coming to the basics, as I sir told, so when we all know that finite element method is one of the numerical method which is used to solve complex engineering problems actually. So many, if you want to solve an engineering problem, there are three methods available. One is analytical method, another one is numerical method, and the experimental method. So if you want to solve using analytical way, the problem should be very simple and standard, right? So in our strength of materials, we are solving very simple and standard problems only. So, but the actual engineering problems will not be like that. So some complexity will be involved in the problem. In that case, we cannot use the available equations directly to get the solution. So there we need some approximate method. So there are so many numerical methods available, but the finite element method becomes more popular because of its advantages. Now, how this finite element method works on engineering problem means it simplifies the complex problem into a simple form. So how it is making that in the end of the session you will understand. Now, as I told you, when to use or when to choose this finite element method or finite element analysis mean. So for complex engineering problem, we are going to apply this finite element method. So before going to the modeling of engineering problem, I am going to give you some definition or how to describe the engineering problem, right? So in that way, first we'll start with what is the engineering problem, what are the characteristics of engineering problem, and then we will how to convert that engineering problem into a mathematical model. So now, when you say engineering problem, so most of the engineering problem will be grouped like this. So if you want to define this classification, mainly I am giving based on the structural problem, but the same way in case of thermal and other fluid problems, the condition may be vary, but more important parameters to be used for defining an engineering problem. Okay, so what are these two parameters? First, for any problem, there should be a definite geometry. So you should know what is the geometry. It may be a mechanical engineering problem, or it may be a civil structural problem, or aeronautical problem, automobile problem. For any, if you want to do some analysis, it may be a stress analysis or dynamic analysis or thermal analysis, any type of analysis. If you select a component, that component will have certain geometry. So geometry means what is the size, what is the shape of the particular component. So in case of geometry, we have to define all the three dimensions, including the area, cross section, everything. So in that case, first one is geometry, then second one is we have to define what are the material properties of the component. So if the component is made of only one material, that material property. If it is a multi-phase material, we have to define the material property in proper way. So like that. So what if the component is made of, right? So that material we have to give. Suppose if the component is made of steel, we have to give steel property. Say, how do you include the material property for analysis? In case of structural analysis, what is the material property we are using? The elasticity, modulus of elasticity, and Poisson's ratio. So like that, if you do thermal analysis, we will use the thermal conductivity or coefficient of thermal expansion, like that, right? Those properties will be used for the particular problem. So similarly, third one is boundary condition. So if you take any component, if you take a machine will be consisting of n number of components. So each component will have some adjacent components. So how the particular component is placed or fixed to the adjacent component, So that is defining the boundary condition, right? Say for example, if you take a IC engine, so there are so many components like piston, connecting rod, crank. These are the main components. So now if you want to do the analysis of the connecting rod, we have to specify the boundary condition, how this connecting rod is fixed on two ends, right? So that is nothing but the boundary condition should be defined properly. And the fourth one is load. What are the loads acting over the component? So when you say load, there are different types of load defined in the strength of material, already we studied. So it may be a steady or dead load, or live load, or dynamic load, or shock load, or impact load, right? So there are different types of load, depends upon the situation. So that load should be properly incorporated in the engineering problem. So when you define an engineering problem, these four parameters are mainly used for the definition. Now, I'll take one simple example how these parameters are defined for an engineering problem. And if you increase the complexity involved in this problem, then we use the finite element method, because for complex engineering problem we don't have any exact solution. We are applying the finite element method, I think. Okay. Amos, my mass is clear?
Yes, sir. Everything is clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. So now I will try to explain the engineering problem and how the complex level of engineering problem can be increased like that. So I'll take one simple exercise. So here I am showing the structural problem, uniform rod subjected to an axial load. So what is uniform rod? Already we know. So if any rod or bar has uniform cross section, then we call it as uniform rod. So let us say in this slide, in the left hand side, I am showing one simple drawing to explain this uniform rod. And here I try to apply all the four parameters of an engineering problem for this one. So here, what is the geometry? So to define the geometry, this parameter is used, the length of the rod, and what is the area of cross section. Area of cross section is uniform like that. So then what is material property? Young's modulus E, right? That is the material property. Then boundary condition. Here one end is fixed, another end is free. This is the boundary condition. Then what is the load condition? The load is acting at the free end, an axial load is acting. So like that, for any problem, we can define that engineering problem by using these four important parameters. Now, if you want to get the deformation, mainly for structural problem, our main focus will be to find the stress, what is the maximum stress acting on the member. Now, but if you want to find the stress, the first thing is we have to measure what is the deformation or elongation. In this case, it is a tensile load, so there will be elongation. So we have to measure that elongation due to the axial load, right? So now, once you measure this elongation, from this elongation, we can measure the strain. What is strain? Strain is nothing but the change in length by original length. Then strain multiplied by Young's modulus will give you stress. So this is called the post processing. Actually, by any numerical method, finite element method also, we are getting the unknown. What is the unknown we are evaluating? That is displacement or deformation. From that deformation, we are deriving strain and stress. That is called post processing. So in the pre-processing, we are defining all these four parameters: geometry, material property, boundary condition, and the load, right? And the solution stage, we are trying to use some solver to solve the problem that will discuss in the later stages. Now, if you try to find the elongation due to this applied load, we are using this Hooke's law, right? So this is applicable for isotropic material, right? So stress is proportional to the strain. So we are using elasticity constant E. Now, based on this Hooke's law, we can derive the expression for the maximum elongation del L. Del L is equal to PL by AE. This is the very well known formula established in the strength of material book. So now we are trying to find this maximum elongation. Maximum elongation is PL by E. Now I will take one more minute to explain this one. So our interest is to find the maximum elongation del L. Now in this expression, what are the things are involved? P, load, L, geometry, E, material property. So the boundary condition will be implied in this equation, that when we form the finite element equation, we will understand better. So for any, here the maximum deflection is our variable, going to be our variable mathematically. So our interest, what is our interest in structural problem? Finding the deflection. In case of thermal problem, finding the temperature. In case of fluid problem, finding the pressure or velocity. So that parameter going to be called as variable. So that variable normally in mathematics they will call as field variable. So hereafter we are going to use the term field variable. Field variable is nothing but the parameter which is of our interest, right, to find out. So now the deflection, in case of structural problem, deflection or deformation or elongation, right, all are same. So this maximum deflection only our variable. Now this is the maximum deflection formula. If I want to get a mathematical form of this one, that means if I want to evaluate the elongation of this bar at any particular point, right? So if I want to measure the elongation of the bar at a distance x meter from the fixed end, what is the elongation? This equation will give you only maximum elongation. So I want to measure the elongation at any particular point in this. For that I am using the concept of integration. So here we are dividing, right, the total length of the bar into elemental length dx, like that. So this dx is placed at the x meter from the fixed end. So now without going much on integration, so directly we can write this equation for del L. Equation for del L, just you can compare this and this. That is why I am telling this one. So del L deflection. Now if you want to find the maximum deflection using the mathematical form, we are using integration 0 to L, where lower limit is fixed end, upper limit is free end, right? Because x is varying from 0 to L. X is 0 means here, x is L means free end. Now PL by AE, same equation only, we are slightly modifying. Instead of L, we are using dx, that elemental length. So when you do integration of this one, PAE, these are constant, we can take it outside of the integration. Integral dx will give you x. When you substitute the limits for x, you will get L. So finally you will get this equation, right? So now this is very simple problem, so we can get the solution easily. Now just I will increase the complexity of this problem. Instead of considering a uniform rod, just let us consider a taper rod, right? One minute. Sorry for the disturbance. Yes. So now I'm just increasing the complexity level of this problem. So am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So instead of considering the uniform rod, I am considering a taper rod here. So with taper rod, in the sense the area of cross section is variable now. So previously we considered A as constant, but now A is a variable, which is a function of x, right? Depends upon the distance from the fixed end, the area of cross section of this taper rod going to vary. So for this equation we can easily derive by using the similar triangle rule. So A of x at any point of time, area cross section will be like that. So A1 minus A2 into x by L. So now, if you substitute variable cross section in this equation, right? What we derived earlier. So here A of x becomes a function. That means variable of x. So when you do integration, p and e alone constant now. So we can take this p and e outside the integration. And then what is the remaining? Integral 1 by ax dx. So we know that 1 by x is nothing but log x. So we get logarithmic solution. So that means deflection will vary logarithmically. So in case of previous case, it will vary linearly. Now it is logarithmically varying. This is also exact solution is possible. Now I'm just increasing the complexity level further. Now taper rod subjected to axial load. Now the area of cross section is varying and axial load is also acting. In addition to that, we are considering the self weight of the member. So when you consider the self weight, so for any engineering problem, when you consider the self weight, the problem become linear problem, will become non-linear problem. So now this is the self weight of the member. When you consider, the self weight will vary from fixed end to free end. In the fixed end, it will be 0. The free end, it will be the maximum value. How to evaluate this self weight? So that is by using density multiplied by the volume, right? So here I am using the symbol gamma. So gamma is nothing but weight density. So there are two types of density. One is weight density, another one is mass density. So here I am using weight density. It's the unit of Newton per meter cube, right? So now multiply by elemental volume A of x dx, which is a variable. Now P constant load. So when you add this one, the load becomes the variable now. So now I think you will understand. We have changed the area as a variable, and P of x load is also a variable. When you come to that integration, so P of x as well as A of x, right? Both in the numerator and the denominator, we have a function. So within the integration, if you have a function like this, right? So numerator as well as the denominator both are function of x. There is no standard formula available in the integration. So this kind of problem will become non-integrable problem. So in that case, we have to depend only on the numerical solution. So this thing you have to understand. That means when you take a simple problem, right? So we have taken uniform rod, standard solution available. Taper rod with axial load, standard solution available. Taper rod, axial load, and when you consider this, right? But we are ending with the non-integrable solution, no classical solution available. So we are going to apply a numerical method. So FEM is the best way to solve this problem. Now this is what we discussed now. So an engineering problem. So the complexity may be increased on all the four parameters, right? So load may be a non-linear one, geometry may be a non-linear, material behavior may be non-linear, boundary condition will become more complex. So if the complexity level is increased, then we have to depend on the numerical method, that is the finite element method. So now I will go to what is the mathematical model. So now just now we have finished what is the engineering problem. So the engineering problem is defined by using 4 parameters. If any complexity is involved in this 4 parameters, we are going to apply the finite element method to solve the problem. If you want to solve a finite element problem using finite element method, first thing is we have to convert the physical problem into a mathematical model. So what is a mathematical model? It is a set of equation which governs the physical phenomenon. So that equation may be either algebraic equation or differential equation or integral or combination of this. So we are trying to define the physical phenomenon by in terms of equation, mathematical equation. Once you get that mathematical equation, then only we can do further analysis. Okay, so that is the important one. As an engineer, we should know how to convert a physical engineering problem into a mathematical model. So for that, I'll give again one simple example. Then we will go to the finite element formulation. So now, before going to that example, we should remember this point. So whenever we convert a physical problem, here I'm showing that one. Whenever we are converting a physical problem into a mathematical model, we are using some assumption. That assumptions are called idealization. So because of that idealization only, we are able to model. That means we are simplifying the physical problem to our knowledge. So that means that mathematical model itself containing some error. That is because of the assumption. So that is called a modeling error. This mathematical model going to be converted into finite element model. So finite element model is nothing but a discrete model. So I'll tell you why it is called discrete model. So when you convert the mathematical model to discrete one, then there will be some error that is called a discretization error, right? And when you solve the discrete model, so we are using so many types of solvers, but in this case also we are giving some compromise to the accuracy of the solution. So then only we can stop the iteration process. So sometimes we say that third level in decimal places, third level accuracy or fourth level accuracy is enough, right? So like that we can stop the iteration process. That is called a rounding of error, right? So we cannot run the program endlessly. So we will terminate the level of accuracy of the solution. So that is called a rounding of error. So any numerical method will have all this error. So that is why we are saying that it will give only approximate solution, but it is acceptable, but approximate solution. Now for a mathematical model, I'll take the taper rod problem. So how to convert a mathematical model, that means physical problem into mathematical model. So I consider the same example for continuity purpose. So we consider a taper rod subjected to an axial load in the free end. Then we included the self weight. Okay. So now remember, if you want to convert a structural problem into a mathematical model, we have to do 3 steps. First one is we have to draw a free body diagram. Second step, we have to apply equilibrium equations. Like mostly that equilibrium equation will be a force equilibrium equation or energy equilibrium equation in case of thermal problem. So like that. So first we will consider a elemental volume. We draw the free body diagram. Then we apply the equilibrium equation. Then we use constitutive equation or elasticity equation. Then only we will get the governing equation for the particular problem. That is, so I will explain these steps through this simple example. So now consider this elemental length dx, which is x meter away from this fixed end. So now this dx length I am showing, this dx length I am showing in the as a free body diagram, right? This is the free body diagram I am showing in the horizontal way. Now what is free body diagram? As per definition, we know that any member isolated from the body. So this is isolated body. Then we have to introduce all the forces acting on the member, right? Internal force, external force, everything we have to include it. Then only it is called a free body. So we are applying all the forces to the free body, nothing but isolated body. So now here, to get the governing equation, the forces are defined in terms of the induced stress. Here, the stress acting on left side and the right side. That means it is the top end, this is bottom end. So the forces are explained, are defined by using the stress, induced stress, right? So what is the definition for stress? That we know the stress is equal to load by area, P by A. So we are multiplying this sigma and A to know this stress. So that is why it is given as sigma multiplied by A of x. Now, since the area of cross section is varying, so this left hand side we have larger area cross section, right hand side smaller area cross section. So area is small, definitely there will be a incremental stress in the right hand side. So that incremental stress is taken as d sigma here. So sigma ax here, sigma plus d sigma ax. Right? Why this d sigma? Because of variable cross section. Okay. Now coming to this effect of self weight. So effect of the self weight acting at this dx length, right? So the self weight also act vertically downwards, right? Vertically downwards here. So how to measure that one? Gamma is the weight density multiplied by elemental volume. So this weight density is nothing but Newton per meter cube. The unit, you see the unit. So it will be Newton per meter cube. So that is the weight density. So now these are the three forces involved in this free body diagram. Force on the left hand side, force on the right hand side, and the self weight, right? So using these three forces, we are going to use the equilibrium equation. So force equilibrium equation, most of the structural problem will be using force equilibrium equation. So let us say sigma f equal to 0, only one direction we are considering. So when you say sigma f equal to 0, consider one direction force is positive, another one is negative. So we are getting the equation sigma plus d sigma ax minus sigma ax, like that. So this sigma term we can cancel it out. So what is the remaining term? D sigma a of x here plus gamma a of x dx. Now to simplify this equation, we are dividing this by dx throughout the equation. So you will get dx, d sigma by dx multiplied by a of x, then gamma a of x, here dx get cancelled. So now the next step, we are going to apply the constitutive equation. That means here first we use the free body diagram, next we apply the equilibrium equation. From the equilibrium equation we are getting this one. So here to replace the sigma in terms of the variable, what is the variable? The variable for structural problem is the deformation. So in this case the deformation is nothing but the deformation is, this is the deformation acting along the axial direction. So since we use the x-ray, the deformation along this x direction is denoted by u. So u is the variable, that is displacement. X is also variable. So here u is varying with respect to x. So u is called a dependent variable, x is called the independent variable. That you have to remember, because these are all mathematics. So we are defining one direction because it is one dimensional problem. Along only one direction we are measuring the change in length. So this change in length u is depending on the original length x. So u is dependent variable, x is independent variable. So in that case we are trying to define the sigma term in terms of that dependent variable u. Then only you will get the governing equation correctly. So for replacing the sigma in terms of the dependent variable, we are going to use the equation called the constitutive equation, or in some textbook they call it as elasticity equation. We know that this is a elasticity equation. So this constitutive equation will give the relation between that parameter sigma and that field variable. So now we are easily replacing this one. Strain is nothing but du by dx, right? Where du is the change in length, dx is the original length. So by definition we can write du by dx. So now for sigma we are replacing this one. Sigma multiplied by a will give you the force, right? So e du by dx, and a of x is also there here in the a of x. So a of x is also a variable, so we are taking inside the bracket. So e by dx, eax du by dx plus gamma a equal to 0. Now, if you A means A of x, that for understanding purpose I am writing EA. Now, what is the nature of this equation? It is a second order differential equation with the right hand side 0. That means it is a homogeneous, second order homogeneous differential equation. What is this equation? This equation defines the problem, taper rod problem, right? So actually, original problem is engineering problem is a taper rod subjected to axial load in addition to the self weight. So that problem is converted into a governing differential equation. So this thing we have to understand. So if you want to convert a engineering problem into a mathematical model should consist of three things. I'll tell you. So now to convert the mathematical model, 3 steps you remember. First you have to draw a free body diagram considering a elemental volume. Then for that free body diagram apply the equilibrium equation. Then we have to use the constitutive equation. Depends upon the nature of the problem, the equation may differ. So I quickly go through that different field problems also. Okay, so now for any mathematical model, these 3 things should be defined properly. Then only we can proceed to the further analysis, right? So mathematical model, just now we derived this one. So mathematical subjected to axial load and self weight. The governing differential equation will be this one, d by dx, Ea du by dx. So it's a second order differential equation. Gamma A, here gamma is weight density equal to 0. Then domain, we have to define the domain. What is the limit or bound? So lower limit and the upper limit of this particular variable x, right? That is a domain. So and then boundary condition we have to define. So when you define the boundary condition, either we use the field variable itself or otherwise the derivative of the field variable. Based on that, we have 2 types of boundary conditions. So if the boundary is defined, boundary of the problem is defined only by using the field variable alone, then it is called the essential boundary condition or primary boundary condition. If you want to define the boundary by using the derivative of the field variable, then it is called the secondary boundary condition or natural boundary condition. So here I am giving that example also. So what is the essential boundary condition? At x equal to 0, what is meant by x equal to 0? Fixed end, right? X equal to 0 means fixed end. U of x equal to 0, that is displacement or diffraction, right? So is 0, fixed end, no diffraction, so 0. So this is one boundary condition. So most of the structural problem will have this boundary condition. So for solving the problem, this essential boundary condition is important. The problem may not have a natural boundary condition, but without essential boundary condition, we cannot solve the problem. That is why it is called essential boundary condition. So now, what is the secondary or natural boundary condition? Here, at x equal to L, what is x equal to L? The free L, right? X equal to L, we have a load acting, right? So load P is acting on the free L. How to define this load? So the in term we have to use the field variable, right? So for that, already we know that du by dx is the strain multiplied by E, Young's modulus is stress multiplied by A is force. So this is the expression used for defining any force acting at the particular point. Not only the free end, at any point inside the or along this length, the boundary condition will be like that. It may be at the x equal to L by 2 or x equal to L by 3. If the P is acting somewhere here, let us say the load is acting here, and at this particular point, let us say it is a x by 2. So what will be the boundary condition? At x equal to x by 2 or L by 2, x equal to L by 2, the load is acting, right? EA du by dx equal to p, like that they will define instead of free end. So this is a example of the natural boundary condition you have to understand. So here the field variable itself used for defining the boundary. That is why it is called essential. Here derivative of the field variable is used. That is why it is called a natural boundary condition or secondary boundary condition. That the difference you should know. Now similarly I have taken many examples for structural problem and the thermal problem. I quickly go through this. I will send this PPT also, no problem, because I have to give finite element formulation also. So now remember, if you want to convert a physical problem into a mathematical model, the 3 steps you have to remember. First you have to consider an elemental volume, then apply equilibrium equation, then use constitutive equation, then you will get the governing differential equation. So for simply supported beam, right? So earlier we consider bar. Now if you take the beam, the equation is slightly different. So here I am taking a simply supported beam. One end is supported by hinge support, another end is roller support. When the consider the self weight of the beam is considered as small w, weight intensity, and the beam will tend to deflect in this way. So when you define the length, right, so along the x direction, this is the x direction, but deflection is happening in the other way. So that is why it is called the transverse deflection or lateral deflection. So if you want to define or measure this deflection, here I am using y as the variable. So y is the lateral deflection or transverse deflection. What is the independent variable? X, right? So now you have to understand clearly this problem. So for this we are taking a elemental length dx. So for this elemental length free body diagram we are considering. So for this element length, this is the load intensity, and on either side we are taking the shear force and the bending moment for this one, right, which you have already studied in the strength of material. So we have to take the positive shear force and the bending moment, and now since we have both the force and the moment, we are going to use force equilibrium equation as well as moment equilibrium equation. So that means we will get 2 equations, right? Those 2 equations are used for defining the governing differential equation. Now first we are applying the equilibrium equation for force. Here shear force and the weight densities are involved. By using this we are getting one important relationship. Rate of change of shear force is equal to load intensity. Then by using the second equilibrium equation, moment equilibrium equation, we are using the moment m and the moment due to shear force, moment due to load intensity, everything is considered. Now the important relationship we are getting, rate of change of bending moment is equal to shear force, right? So these 2 relationships going to be used for constitutive equation. What is the constitutive equation for beam problem? The bending equation, the famous bending equation, m by I equal to sigma by y equal to E by R, right? So that equation I am taking, this is the constitutive equation, where m is the bending moment, I is the area moment of inertia, E is Young's modulus, 1 by R is the radius of curvature. So from this equation we can write bending moment is equal to E by R, where this bending moment m, this is 1 by R. The 1 by R is equal to d square y by dx square, the radius of curvature. By geometry it is defined
transport
textbook. So we are defining the bending moment in terms of the field variable, but it is a second order derivative of the field variable. Ei d square y by dx square is bending moment. Now using that relationship, rate of change of bending moment is shear force. So dm by dx is nothing but Ei d cube y by dx cube. This is nothing but shear force, which is defined by y, but it is a third order derivative of field variable. Next we are using that first relationship, that is rate of change of shear force is equal to load intensity, right? So when you use this one, load intensity is equal to dq by dx. Again differentiating di d power 4 y by dx power 4. So the load intensity also defined in terms of y here. That is the
அப்படி சலிச்சுக்கிறா
So but it is
என்ன ஓபன் ஆகல
order derivative. Load is fourth order.
குரோம் எதுக்கு ஓபன் பண்ற
Shear force is third order derivative. Bending moment is second order derivative, and the first order derivative will be a slope, right? So everything has some physical meaning we have to understand. Now the final equation W equal to EI d for 4y by dx per 4, that is the governing differential equation, right? This is the load intensity, this is the actual load intensity, this is load intensity measured by deflection, this is the load intensity applied, right? This is nothing but a force equilibrium equation only. So this is the governing differential equation for a beam. So if you write the mathematical model, we have to define domain. So domain is for the simply supported beam, the domain is varying from 0 to L. Okay. So then boundary condition, we have primary boundary condition, essential boundary condition, secondary boundary condition, or natural boundary condition. So there are different types of beam, right? Cantilever beam, simply supported beam, fixed beam, overhanging beam, right? Propped cantilever. There are different types of beam. For all types of beam, governing differential equation is same. Then how to differentiate the various types of beam? Only by using the boundary condition. Only by using boundary condition, we can differentiate the types of beam. So for simply supported beam, at x equal to 0, because of support, y 0. At x equal to L, because of the support, y 0. And it is simply supported, so the end, the deflection is permitted, right? So bending moment will be 0. So that is why EI d square y by dx square at x equal to 0 equal to 0. That means already we know that the second order derivative is the bending moment. Similarly, at x equal to L, bending moment 0. So in case of cantilever beam, the boundary condition will be slightly different. So that thing we have to understand. Similarly, we can consider a heat transfer problem. So how to convert a mathematical model of this heat transfer problem? So for that, I am taking a cooling fin example. So here also we are using that elemental volume, and we apply the equilibrium equation. So here the two modes of heat transfer is
5-inch part la nariya 4-inch la nariya
conduction equation by Fourier law. We get this one: amount of heat transfer Q is equal to minus Ka dt by dx, where K is thermal conductivity, A is area of cross section, dt by dx is called thermal gradient. And convection, amount of heat transfer due to convection. So it is because due to Newton's laws of cooling, we can get this equation. H is coefficient of heat convection, T perimeter of the fin, L is the length, T temperature, T infinity or TA is called the ambient temperature. So by using this, we can easily get this one. This is the free body diagram, heat supply and heat output. So this is taken as negative, and heat the side way we are taking the amount of heat through convection mode. This is conduction mode, this is convection mode. Then they are forming the equilibrium equation and applying the constitutive equation. What is constitutive equation? This one, Fourier law. Fourier law is the constitutive equation. So by that we can get the governing differential equation. What is the field variable here? The temperature. So second order derivative. So d square t by dx square, Ka d square t by dx square plus hp t minus t infinity. So this is also a second order differential equation, which is defining the heat transfer through a cooling fin, right? So like that you can derive the, for a mathematical model you have to define domain and the boundary condition. At x equal to 0, t equal to t naught, that is a source end. Free end x equal to 0.
அப்பா இங்க பாரு மீட்டிங் முடிஞ்சிட்டோன்னு
So
வரேன்.
it may be insulated. So if it is insulated, if the cooling pin, the free end is insulated, there will not be any convection taking place. So that's why that is called amount of heat transfer will be equal to 0. In case of free end, from this free end, convection may takes place. So that is why the amount of heat transfer is equal to the convection through open end, right? That is why area of cross section is selected. So these are the boundary conditions. We have to understand properly the meaning. So like that longitudinal vibration. So I quickly skip this one because this is similar to the first one, taper rod problem. Only thing is, we'll in the free body diagram, in addition to this test, we consider the inertia force because of dynamic problem. So by using the D'Alembert's principle, we are considering the inertia force to the free body diagram. So by that way, the dynamic problem will become a static engineering problem. So we can easily apply the equilibrium equation, right? So this inertia force is acting opposite to the line of motion, that you have to know. Then apply the force equilibrium equation. Finally, we will end up with the equation. After applying the constitutive, here constitutive equation is same, that Hooke's law only. So then you will get the governing differential equation in this way. This is also a second order differential equation, but this is for the inertia force term. Here rho is mass density, area of cross section, u is the time. Here t is the time and x is the displacement, that is x. There are two different independent variables, right? So we have displacement as well as the time. So for solving this type of problem, normally we use simple harmonic motion, right? So we define that u is capital U sin omega t, right? So the motion is following simple harmonic motion like that. So by that way, this time domain problem will be converted into frequency domain problem. We can easily solve the problem. Okay. So most of the vibration problems are solved by assuming the system follows simple harmonic motion like that. So I have shown some example here for dynamic problem. In the boundary condition, in addition to the boundary condition, we have to add a initial condition also because the time is involved, right? So at t equal to 0, what is the displacement? At x equal to 0, what is the displacement? Like that they are showing boundary condition and the initial condition. So this is what, if you want to solve the problem, we have to assume like this: u, x, comma t, two independent variable, right? We are converting into only one omega t. So we are converting into frequency domain. Yes. So till now what we discussed is how to convert. Okay. So I'll take another 20 minutes to understand about how to convert a mathematical model into a finite element model, right? So now till now we discussed what is an engineering problem and how to convert an engineering problem into mathematical model. Mathematical model is nothing but a set of equations. So most of the physical phenomena will be defined by differential equation only. So this differential equation, and you have to define domain and the boundary condition, then is the complete mathematical model. Now once you have the mathematical model, then we have to move on further. We are going to apply finite element concept. So for that, now before moving to the finite element, we have to see one more method called weighted residual method, because the weighted residual method is the start of the finite element method. So I'll try to explain what is the weighted residual method. Then from that I'll formulate a finite element equation for this simple example. Okay. So now I will take this example of again uniform rod for easy understanding purpose, right? So let us consider a mathematical model of a uniform rod. So here A and E both are constant, so you can take outside the bracket. So it is EA or AE d square u by dx square plus gamma A. Actually, gamma A is given here as Q naught, right? So Q naught is gamma multiplied by A. So here in this problem it is specified like that. So now this is the governing differential equation of this uniform rod. Domain is given 0 to L. Boundary condition is given at u of 0, 0 means that means at x equal to 0, fixed end displacement 0. This is the essential boundary condition. It indicates fixed end. And du by dx at x equal to L equal to 0. That means in the free end, no load is acting. If suppose if the load is acting at a free end, the right load is P, then only they will say EA du by dx is equal to P. But here no P load is acting, so that is why they are saying that it is equal to 0. No external force at the P end. That is you have to interpret the equation, domain, boundary condition, everything in the physical way. So that is important. Now, if you want to solve this problem, right? So let us say we are going to solve this problem using a numerical method, right? So for any numerical method, first we use a trial function, then we try to improve the solution of this problem by various iteration process. Okay. So here also, what is our field variable? U is the field variable, right? For structural problem, we are going to assume a function for this field variable as a trial function. So when you assume the trial function for the field variable, you have to understand the problem completely. So how this field variable will vary. So when you consider a uniform rod with the axial load alone, that is point load alone, the problem will be a linear problem. But whenever you consider a self-weight, right, the problem will become non-linear way. So that thing you have to understand. So when you consider a trial function for this, minimum we have to consider a second order polynomial, right? So first order polynomial means it is a linear polynomial. Second order means it is a non-linear, that is a quadratic polynomial. So non-linear, if you add another term, it is a cubic polynomial, right? So but the second order alone is enough. So why the second order is preferred? Based on the understanding of the variable, right? Our displacement is varying non-linearly, so we have to use some trial function which will define that non-linear behavior very closely. Okay, so in that way we have to select this trial function. Now this is a general trial function. Just I am going to verify that whether this trial function is satisfying the given boundary condition. So at fixed end, u of 0 equal to 0. So by applying this one, the a0 term will become 0 now, and using du by dx free end equal to 0. So in this case, we have, when you define du, right? So you'll get only a1 plus 2a2x. So this will be equal to 0. So in that case, you will get the relationship between a1 in terms of a2. Okay, so you see this one, minus 2a2lx plus a2x square. Here a1 is equal to minus 2a2l, right? That relationship. So if you substitute that a1 minus 2a2lx a2x square, then we will get a2 minus 2lx plus x square. So this equation, slightly I am changing, a2 x square minus 2lx. Now this is, we are going to call it as eligible trial function. Why it is eligible? Initially we assumed a general trial function, then we apply the boundary condition of the particular problem to this trial function. Now this trial function is eligible, become eligible to solve that particular problem. That is why it is called a eligible trial function. So u star of x, just for differentiation purpose, I am using u star of x. So for the eligible trial function. So here it is a polynomial function, second order. Only one unknown is there, a2. So if I find the value of this a2, then the problem is solved, right? So what is our aim? We want to find the value of displacement at any point along the length of the rod, right? So this is the equation. U star of x is nothing but, it is called the displacement equation, right? So u star of x, if I put any value of x, we are able to find the u star, provided if I know the value of a2. How to define or how to evaluate this a2? The a2 going to be evaluated in terms of material property and geometrical property. For that, what method we are going to use? We are going to use weighted residual method. There are so many methods available, but weighted residual method is the base for the finite element method. So directly tomorrow we are going to see the variational formulation and the weighted residual method. One more professor from SSN college going to come and explain. Here I am going to explain only that weighted residual method. In that we are going to see only the Galerkin method. So now once again I'll summarize. We have a mathematical model, physical problem converted into mathematical model. Now we are trying to solve the mathematical model by assuming a trial function. The trial function is converted into eligible trial function. So now if I use this u star of x in the governing differential equation, right? So in the governing differential, what is the governing differential equation? This one, ae d square u by dx square plus q naught. So if I use u star of x, right, at this particular place, the governing differential equation, this equation will not become equal to 0. Why? Because this u star of x is only, still it is a trial function. So any trial function will not satisfy this equation. So when this right hand side will become 0, if I get exact solution for u, that u alone satisfy this equation. All otherwise, other trial function will not satisfy this equation. So that is why when the trial function is substituted in this governing differential equation, this equation will not give 0. There will be some error, right, or residue, right? So that is why this equation is called residual equation. So when I substitute trial function in this governing differential equation, then that equation become residual function. This point you have to clearly understand. So because we have to know what is residual function, then only you will understand the further methods. Okay. So now the r of, how we are getting this r of x, our trial function is substituted, this u star of x is substituted in this equation ae d square u by dx square, right? So dx square plus q naught, that is our governing differential equation. So ae, this one, and what is d square u by dx square? This is recalculated based on the eligible trial function. So d square u by dx square is 2a2. The q naught is taken same way. So this is going to be considered as the residual equation or residual function. So what is a residual function? When the trial function is substituted in a governing differential equation, the governing differential equation becomes the residual function. You have to understand the physical meaning. So for solving a engineering problem, so that mathematical model is very important. Now you will understand and appreciate the importance of the mathematical model, that governing differential equation. Based on the governing differential equation, we are deriving this residual function. Now when I will get the exact solution, now I have substituted u star in the governing differential equation. So when I can say this U star is my exact solution. Whenever this residue R takes R goes to 0, then only I can say this U star is my exact solution. You have to understand here. So if the residual becomes 0, your U star satisfies the condition. That means the U star will become the exact solution of this particular equation. That means particular problem. So what is going to be our aim means, after deriving the residual function, we try to reduce this residual, right? So by trying to reduce the residual, that means we try to make it 0. So by make it 0, we are going to say that that particular U star going to be your answer. That is exact solution for the problem. So for that, there are different procedure available. One is point collocation method, another one is subdomain method, then third one is least square method, the fourth one is Galerkin method, right? That Galerkin method is the exact weighted residual method actually. So here I am explaining that what is weighted residual method. Okay, so now this is our residual function what we evaluated. X is the independent variable where a1, a2, a3 are the unknown coefficient. If you see the earlier one, a2 alone we have, because we consider only second order polynomial, so we have only a2. If your polynomial is higher order, we have a2, a3, a4, a5 up to an. So this is the residual function r of x. Then we have to multiply with some weight function. Then when you multiply with the weight function, it is called the weighted residual function. Then you integrate this weighted residual function over the domain, right? Your domain may be 0 to L in case of one-dimensional problem, right? In case of 2D, we have double integration, area integration. In case of 3D, it is a volume integration. Okay, like that. So we have to multiply the residual function into multiply with the weight function, then integrate the product over the domain and equate to 0. This is the concept of weighted residual method. So now how to choose this weighting function or weight function? So this is different methods suggest different procedure, but the Galerkin method. So the Galerkin method, one of the best method. Based on this Galerkin method only, we are going to develop the finite element equation. So what is the advantage of the Galerkin method? This method, the trial function w of x, trial function ni of x itself consider as the weight function w of x, right? So what is the trial function? What that trial function may be used here, then integrate over the domain, then we can equal to 0. So in that way we can simplify our problem. So now coming to that previous example, what we consider here, a uniform rod subjected to axial load in addition to self, right? This is the governing differential equation. When you substitute u into u star, then this will become the residual function. Now what is the Galerkin method? We have to multiply the residual function with the weight function and integrate over the domain. This is the symbol omega, is another symbol used for defining domain, and equal to 0. So here what is the r of x? Ea d square u by dx square gamma a, which is the uniform rod problem, and the weight function w of x dx equal to 0. So as per the Galerkin approach, this weight function may be, in the previous example, just to explain the residual function, I taken this example, right? So here, in this case, all are constant, 2ae, a2, q0, all are constant, no trial function, that is no x term is involved here. But in this case, this one can be considered as a weight function, x square minus 2lx. So this one we can multiply with the r of x. R of x is this one, and integrate over the domain 0 to L, right, and equate to 0. This is the Galerkin method actually. So governing differential equation converted into residual function, and that residual function is multiplied with the weight function. That weight function, this product of residual and weight function integrated over the domain equal to 0. So this is the basic idea of the Galerkin method. Now, what is the advantage of the Galerkin method? That means when you multiply this w of x inside this bracket, so we'll get EA d square u dx square multiplied by w of x weight function, and gamma a, right, gamma a again multiplied by w of x weight function equal to 0. We are getting two different terms. Now the first term, in the first term we have integration as well as differentiation. So this type of equations are called integral differential equation. So for that we have a standard formula called integral udv is equal to uv minus integral vdu. So why this formula is applied here? For reducing the order of differentiation. So if integral u dv, there are two functions. You see integral u is the function of x, w is also a function of x. So here u is in the second order derivative, w is no derivative involved. So now we are trying to change this one. U as well as v both are function of x. It can be written like this: product of uv minus integral v du, right? So this is called the integral by parts formula. Integral by parts formula. So by this way, our u is w of x weight function. dv is that d square u by dx square is written like this: d by dx of du by dx. So what is v here? V is du by dx. So when you write this one, integral ea d square u by dx square gamma dx w of x dx is equal to, right? So in this way we have to write first uv. What is u? W of x multiplied by du by dx. Integral v du. What is v? V is du by dx. Du dw by dx. Like that we will get uv term, integral v du term. Then in addition to that, the second one, integral gamma a w of x dx equal to 0. So this is the integral by parts formula. We are getting this term. So for each term there is a physical meaning. That is what I want to explain here. So here I am writing this term first, integral 0 to L, right? So we are taking this to the other side of equation, right? So ea du by dx dw by dx into dx is equal to gamma a w of x dx plus this term, okay, ea du by dx. So this is nothing but this is similar to the physical phenomenon called strain energy. This is like work done. This is also work done due to self-weight. That we know that work done is nothing but force multiplied by distance, right? So that is the physical meaning of this one. This is the final equation. The left hand side, this one, the second order derivative d square u by dx square is reduced into first order derivative. So that is why it is called a weak form of this governing differential equation of the uniform rod. So here self weight gamma a wxt, and here p of x. Why it is p of x? ea du by dx is nothing but p, right? Already we know. So that p of x multiplied by w of x we are showing here. So this is going to denote the boundary, right? That is natural boundary condition. So natural boundary condition is denoted here. So in this way, if this term is not there, then also we have equation only with the self weight, right? If the additional load is acting, then only we will have this boundary term. So now this is the weak form of the governing differential equation of the uniform cross-section rod. So now again you see, first the engineering problem is converted into mathematical model. That mathematical model is converted into residual equation. The residual equation, we have second order derivative. So that residual equation is converted into weak form by applying the Galerkin method. Now to this Galerkin method only we are going to apply the finite element concept. So now I'll take a few more minutes to complete these important fundamentals. So now in the finite element method, actually there are different types of elements used for solving the different types of problem. The main classification of the element is based on the dimension involved, right? So one dimension element, two dimension element, three dimension element, like that. So here for this uniform rod problem, the displacement is only along the x direction. So we can use the one dimensional element, which is called the line element. So for that line element, for any finite element, we have to define certain things. That means in here for this line element, there are two end node, 1 and 2, and L is the length of the element. At each node, we are defining that field variable u1, u2 or ui, uj, right? So in general, so if node 1 means it will be node u1 and this will be u2. That is nodal parameter or nodal displacement, we call it. So inside this element, right, this is the element length. What is the u value? What is the u2 value within the element? That is defined by using this polynomial. So a1 plus a2x. So this is the linear polynomial. That is why it is called a linear approximation. So a1 plus a2x. So when you apply the boundary condition at x equal to 1, that is the node 1, you have u1 equal to a1 because x will become 0. At node 2, you will get a1 plus a2l. So these two equations, using these two equations, if you try to evaluate, then finally we will get this equation in this form. That is u of x is equal to, there is a separate session, don't worry participants, how to derive this shape function and all. In the forthcoming lectures, there are separate sections. So if you don't understand this derivation, don't worry. One more professor will come and explain. So what you have to understand here is that u of x, which is initially assumed with the linear polynomial, is replaced by this function, which are called shape function or interpolation function, 1 minus x by l and x by l into u1 by u2. So this n1 is nothing but 1 minus x by l, n2 is nothing but x by l, right? So where x is the distance measured from the node 1, l is the elemental length, that you have to know. Now in finite element method, if you use this line element, so we have to know the characteristics. The shape is line. In case of 2D, it may be a triangle or rectangle like that. Number of nodes used is 2 nodes, only primary node. So the nodes which are at the end of element is called primary node. If you introduce any node inside the element, which is called a secondary node or higher node. So next is number of degrees of freedom at each node. Here at each node we are defining only 1 degrees of freedom, u1 and the u2 like that. So numbers of degrees of freedom is 1 actually. Total degree of freedom is 2. Number of nodes into degree of freedom at each node. Number of shape function is 2. This is 1. So number of shape function 2. Total number of shape function is 2. So these are called the element characteristics. So once you know these element characteristics, then we can easily formulate finite element equation. The finite element equation can be formulated only after getting the weak form of the particular problem. So what is the problem we are considering? Uniform rod subjected to axial load in addition to the self weight. So for this one, we have the governing differential equation, domain, boundary condition, and the weak form. Up to this we have derived, right? So now, in term for u, we are going to apply that function by finite element analysis. U of x is nothing but n1 u1 plus n2 u2, where n1 and n2 are called interpolation function or shape function. u1 u2 are called nodal parameter, that is nodal displacement value. So n1 is nothing but 1 minus x by l, n2 is nothing but x by l. So now when you apply u of x is equal to this one in the weak form, right? In the weak form, we are going to apply u is equal to n1 u1 plus n2 u2. V going to be n1 or n2, right? So here u of x is assumed n1 u1 plus n2 u2. V of x is assumed n1. So in that case, we will get one equation. When you assume u of x equal to n1 u1 plus n2 u2 and v of x equal to n2, you will get second equation. So that the two equations will form the element characteristic equation. So now we are solving this equation, participants. EA, here you have a plus term. So this will be break up into two terms, d u1 by dx, dn1 by dx into u1, dn2 by dx u1. Then we have this dn1 by dx. So when you multiply these into within the bracket, so you have two terms, dn1 by dx, dn by dx plus dn2 by dx, dn1 by dx u2. So u1 and u2 here. I am showing only left hand side alone, left hand side this part alone, left hand side part alone. So when you substitute the d1 by dx, what is n1? n1 is 1 minus x by l. When you find dn1 by dx, it is minus 1 by l. n2 is x by l, so it is 1 by l. So when you substitute dn1 by dx, dn1 by dx and dn2 by dx, everything in this equation, the equation will be simplified. You can take the common terms EA by L square integral dx u1. Integral dx is x. When you apply the limit, you get 1L. Similarly, EA minus 1 by L square u2. So on simplifying this, you will get one equation like this: EA by L 1 minus 1 u1 by, this is in matrix form. Actual equation is in this format: EA by L u1 minus EA by L u2, u1 minus u2. So we are changing into matrix form. Similarly, right hand side, gamma A n1. So n1 is 1 minus x by l. P of x into l1, 1 minus x by l. So you multiply and integrate it. So finally you will get gamma A l by 2. Gamma A l by 2 as the right hand side. So one equation will be AE 1 minus 1 u1 u2 gamma AL by 2. Similarly, when you use V of x equal to n2, we will get a similar equation. Here, what is the difference? 1 instead of 1 minus 1, we will get minus 1 and plus 1. So on combining these two equations, you will get the element characteristic equation for the bar problem. That is AE by L 1 minus 1 minus 1 1 u1 u2 gamma AL by 2 1 1 P of 0 and P of, what is P of 0? External load or point load at x equal to 0. Point load at x equal to L. So this is the general format of the finite element equation. So this is going to be called as stiffness matrix. This is displacement vector. This is load vector. These are boundary terms. So K multiplied by U is equal to F. This is the finite element equation. So for any problem, we can define this finite element equation. It may be a structural problem, it may be a thermal problem, or it may be a fluid problem, electrical problem. So the procedure is same. Once again, I'll summarize. So first, for any engineering problem, we have to convert into mathematical model by using the equilibrium equation.
Screen share everything that will be visible. The YouTube
Once the mathematical model is arrived, that mathematical model is converted into residual function by using by applying the Galerkin method, right? So after applying the Galerkin method, it will become weak form. For that weak form, we are applying the finite element. What are the elements we are going to use? That element characteristics going to be applied for that. Based on that, we will get the element characteristic equation. So these are the basic steps when you try to solve any problem in FEA. These are the steps to be followed, and the same steps will be discretized in any software into three categories: pre-processing, solution, and post-processing. And as an engineer, we should be able to interpret the result, whatever the result coming from the software. That is very, very important. For any input, the software will give you some output, right? That should be carefully read and interpret. Some standard reference books I'm showing here. So the highlighted books are very easy to understand, and for starting purpose, we can use this Chandrapatla textbook, and S.S. Rao, J.N. Reddy are very popular for beginners. So, thank you, participants. If you have any question, I'm ready to answer. So within this stipulated time, I will try to cover how the finite element formulation is done.
Thank you, Murugan sir, for your crystal clear explanation. Participants, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the questions.
Sir? Yes, sir.
Sir, Arun sir, we are at the beginning stage, sir, in a FEM subject.
Okay.
Sir, will you provide the notes for at basics level so we can improve ourselves, sir?
Yes, definitely, sir. We will try to give some PDF format. We will give some e-books, and also this type of notes we'll give, sir.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the program,
okay, sir.
We know your email ID. We will send to
yes,
your
sir.
email ID.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Okay.
And the important thing is understanding the problem, engineering problem, and you should know some basic mathematical knowledge, how to convert the engineering problem using the available equilibrium equation. So then once you have the model, mathematical model, everything is mathematics, simply mathematics. Finite element method is purely mathematics only.
Dear participants, kindly fill up the feedback form for this session. For every session, the feedback form will be shared. The feedback form has been shared in the chat box. You can view it. Kindly fill it up.
So dear participants, from tomorrow onwards we have some online demonstration class also. I think we are arranging ANSYS workbench. So I think that will help you understanding how the real-time problems are solved using the softwares.
So can we close the session, sir?
Participants, you have any doubt or suggestions, you can share. So from tomorrow onwards, we have 3 sessions. Morning 10 o'clock, 10 to 11:30, and 12 to 1:30, then 2:30 to 4. So today only the inauguration is we closed very shortly, but from tomorrow onwards we have 3 sessions.
Dear participants, kindly fill up the feedback form, and then after doing that you can leave the meeting. So thank you all for joining. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. The next session will start. It is by Dr. M.S. Alfin from SSN College of Engineering, Chennai. Thank you all for joining us.